Hey guys, Professor Tomney here. I just wanted to stop by and say hey and tell you about a new portion to the channel that I'm going to be adding. I'm going to basically give advice in terms of studying, in terms of some of it'll be chemistry related, but a lot of it's going to be college, career advice, academia stuff in general, because a lot of students always ask me about everything from writing letters of recommendation to graduate school to all sorts of stuff. So I wanted to take the time to sort of do these segments where I'm talking with you guys. So first of all, I apologize that the webcam quality is not higher. I had a fantastic Logitech that I used to use with my old PC, and now I have my my MacBook Air, which I love, by the way. And apparently, I'm looking on the forums, and Logitech doesn't support Mac, their webcam stuff. So gotta say thumbs down on that as far as a review goes. I love this camera if you're doing PC. I think it's a C920. But anyway, if you're Mac, yeah, Logitech, kind of a disappointment, which I gotta say. So, what's the topic for today? I wanted to discuss with you guys basically the stigma of community college, because I teach at a community college. For those of you that don't know, I know some of you are my own students or former students. Some of you come from all over the place. And if you're not in a community college, that's great. You can go to any school you want to, obviously. But there is a huge, I guess, stigma that's associated with community college, and that it's not okay to go to community college for your 2 years. You're kind of cheating yourself out of the 4-year experience and all that. And that's nonsense. I just want to straight up say that's complete bull crap. So, yeah, I understand there's no dorms and stuff like that, but honestly, why are you going to college? Are you going to college because you want the dorm experience, because you want to, get crappy cafeteria food and drink with your friends and stuff like that? If that's the case, that's great, but I would argue that you could have a much better time with how expensive college is nowadays. You could have a much better time getting an apartment or a hotel room or something like that and having that experience for 4 years, probably for cheaper than it would be doing it at college. But I know, parents pay for stuff, etc. The student loans is a whole nother issue, and I may rant on that a little bit in this video. We'll see. So, yeah, community college. So let's break it up. I like to break it up into 3 major sections, right? Community college, state schools, which I would call, if you're talking about a state-sponsored school, when they talk about in-state tuition, so I'm in Maryland, right? So University of Maryland would be a state school. Towson University, which is one of the suburbs up in I call it Northern Maryland, but it is a state university, right? It's state-run. And then you have private colleges. So you're talking about whether it's your Ivy Leagues or whether you're talking about your other small liberal arts colleges and stuff like that. So number one reason, and I'm very practical about this, okay? And we're going to talk about the academical stuff as well. Number one reason in terms of community college is the cost. I mean, if you think about it, most of the community college classes are very, very affordable in comparison to state schools, which are still moderately affordable compared to the private, which are like astronomically high. And I always get students that come in, they're in a community college because they're in my class, and they ask me, they say, well, after 2 years, after I'm done with your organic chemistry class, I'm transferring. So should I go to a 4-year state school, or should I go to a private college to finish it off? And my answer is always the same. There's going to be trade-offs for both of those, right? So what's the trade-off if you're going to a state school? Well, first of all, you're going to save money if you're going to a state school, most definitely. Now, this is assuming you're in state, right? If you live in Maryland and then you say, oh, I'm going to go to college up in Delaware or New Jersey or something like that. A lot of those states, some of them have these like coalitions that basically if you're within a certain area or range, you get the in-state tuition. But a lot of them charge 3 or 4 times the amount for out-of-state students. So if you're going to do that, you might as well consider private colleges in the running at that point, right? So number one is the cost. I don't know the exact statistic, but the last time I looked, it was somewhere between like 7 to 10,000, depending on the state you're in. I live in Maryland, which I looked up the other day is apparently like the richest state out of all 50 states. I certainly don't feel that rich. I guess it's the cost of living here. But that aside, usually it's somewhere between $7 to $10,000, right, for an in-state. So what's the downside? Because when you go to a private institution, many of them are charging 25, 30, and that's just to walk in the door. Then you've got additional when you want to do room and board, food, fees, all that other kind of stuff. So what's the disadvantage of state schools? And I say this because I got my master's at a state school. And I got my undergraduate at a private school. And my PhD was at a private school. I ended up dropping out of my PhD program. And I have all sorts of stuff I can talk to you guys about grad school. If you're interested in that, I don't want to like completely crap all over grad school, but you need to think long and hard before you go into grad school. I can tell you that. Anyway, I'm getting off track here. So, going back to when we're talking about state schools, right? A state school is cheap, relatively speaking. However, most of the classroom size and the teaching experience you're going to get, the learning experience, is very, very limited at best. And I do have to hand that to private schools. So when you go to a lot of these private schools, not all of them, some of the larger ones may have, large class sizes. But I've taught at state universities, I've taught at community colleges, I've taught at private colleges. I've taught at all of them. When I teach at a private college, we're talking like the 30K plus a year, most of my class sizes, general chemistry, organic chemistry, whatever, they're limited to about 20, up to 30 students, I would say. They usually don't get much larger than 30 students, okay? The community colleges even limit it better than the state schools do. A lot of my community colleges, they'll give me what's called a double section, and each section has, 25 students, so I'm teaching 50 students. Getting up there, but I still have enough for first name basis and that kind of stuff. When I taught at the state universities, the ones that I taught at, that got crazy. I mean, my general chemistry classes could be anywhere from like 100 to 150, and those were at the state universities I was at. I wasn't at the largest ones. So you go to a place where it's one of the largest state universities for your state, like, University of, and then put the name of your state, Arizona, Maryland, California, whatever. Some of those lectures can get up to like, 150, 200 plus people easily. And the other issue you're going to have with state schools is that you are going to have professors that are busy with their grants. It's publish or perish there. They are focused on that. And there's some of that at private schools. Don't get me wrong. A lot of the private schools still want that. But a lot of private schools tend to focus and say education and your teaching comes first. But then don't forget the grants and the research after that. Whereas state schools, they're usually their main objective. And sometimes they hire lecturers, right, that are just straight for lecturing. They don't do research. But most of the state schools, if you're a full-time lecturer there, they're pushing your research agenda. You need to be making money, you need to be bringing in grants, you need to be writing, you need to be publishing. And so a lot of these instructors, I can say from firsthand experience, not necessarily myself, I do my own research for fun, but my focus is teaching, okay? So it's not publishing and getting grant money and all that kind of stuff. I've dealt with plenty of people who are, and let me tell you, it affects their teaching, okay? Their goal is to get back to their office as quick as they can. They shovel a lot of the stuff on the TAs, whether it's office hours, whether it's grading or all that kind of stuff, feedback. And their strict goal, their focus for their entire career there is to continue to bring in grant money for the college, because no grants, no money means no job. They will get rid of them and bring somebody else in. And that's the problem with state schools. The state schools are very affordable from the aspect of your budget. However, the state schools really, the best example I could give is that they oftentimes treat you like cattle, right? They herd you in. So state schools, if you're going to save money with a state school, you have to be self-motivated in terms of your study habits, in terms of your staying on top of stuff, going to office hours, seeking help. you're not going to get the same level of that commitment. Now, the trade-off, again, because it seems like I'm favoring private schools, and I'm not. Private schools, you get that nice sort of extra attention, right? And it's fantastic. You're paying ridiculous amounts of money for that. Insane amounts of money, okay? It's like if you turn around and you say, okay, well, I want some extra special tutoring, right? I want a tutor that's going to really sort of do a little more hand-holding, give me customized assignments, and things like that. So what's the going rate for just a regular tutoring session for organic chemistry? $35, $40 an hour. Imagine going to a tutor and saying, the tutor saying, well, I'll give you that extra attention. I'll create custom things for you. I'll make sure I'll make you extra videos online. I'll do video chatting with you. I'll do all these things that you need. But it's going to cost you $250 an hour. And you can learn the same stuff with the other guy for $40 an hour, but that other guy's busy. So they're not going to have as much time for you. They're not going to be able to dedicate quite as much. Some people have the money. They want to pay for that, and that's great. I have seen student debts from personal experience, along with lots of other people that I talk to. Student debts completely cripple and ruin lives. They absolutely do. And the problem is a lot of you guys, you're not thinking when you're signing up for that stuff. And the issue with that is that this is why I like community colleges so much, because community colleges keep it affordable for working adults. And when I say working adults, I mean 18-year-olds and over, even 17, whatever. If you're going to college and you're working to pay for it, or the bulk of it because your parents aren't paying for it, you have I find a lot of my community college students are highly driven, more so than my state students and especially my private school students when I taught them. And that has a lot to do with the fact that they've paid for something, right? When something is free, you don't value it the same way. Or if somebody else is paying for it, right? You value that experience. You put in the time. You work hard for that kind of stuff when you have that invested interest in it. And that's one of the things I like about community college. They make education from the traditional classroom sense more affordable, right? And I think they keep the class size relatively small. So you get the benefit of the smaller class size, but you also get the affordability, okay? And again, I can have separate talks about textbooks and things. I mean, God, my organic chemistry class, the kids tell me now it's like the textbook in the bookstore costs more than the freaking tuition does. That's crazy, okay? But outside of that, anyway, I really think community colleges get a bad rap. You can get a decent exposure to this stuff without driving yourself into debt. Because when you think about how expensive, think about the private schools now that want $30,000 a year. So you go there for 4 years, right? You go there for 4 years at $30,000 a year. Outside of additional costs, if you're drinking on the weekends, you're going out and eating with friends, whatever, okay? Just for that alone, you're paying $120,000 in tuition. That's a house in a lot of places. So you're saying, yeah, I'm going to give you a house in order for you to give me a piece of paper that says I understand X, chemistry, biology, math, psychology, sociology, whatever, right? It's hard because I'm an educator. I'm trying not to displace or devalue the value on education. But you guys have to keep this in perspective, right? Money is real. Money buys things. Money takes care of your family. I'm about to have my first kid soon, okay, in another 2 months. I need money to take care of that kid. My degree that sits on the wall does not take care of that kid for me, right? I can walk around all day and say, oh, I have a master's degree in organic chemistry and I have postgraduate training. Unless I can get a job, and let me tell you something, this job market sucks. Right now, it sucks, okay? Unless I can get a job, I owe somebody $120,000. And let me tell you something about the student loans, right? They're non-bankruptable, which a lot of students, many students don't even understand what bankruptcy is, okay? But if you look back in the day, there were problems where a lot of these people would rack up huge amounts of debt. Now, the tuition wasn't that high back then, but people that wanted to be doctors or lawyers or things like that, they'd have to pay a lot, right, for the cost of that education. So what was their solution? Well, geez, these people are going to charge me $150,000, $200,000. I'm just going to go through the system and declare bankruptcy, right? It's just a do-over. It'll sit on my credit for 7 years. I can't buy a house, whatever. I'll rent a really nice apartment. Declare bankruptcy, $200,000 off the slate. I'm good to go. And I mean, come on. I'm a lawyer. I'm a doctor. I don't need any additional help after that. And so what the government did was they said, well, now they're going to be non-bankruptable. So this will follow you to your grave when you make this mistake. These aren't like credit cards and other things like that, which you should still be avoiding, okay? But the problem is when you take out all these student loans, which going to community college helps to avoid this excessive amount of taking out loans, that's reality. So when you finish and you have your degree, they'll give you a grace period. I think it's like 6 months or something like that. But they're going to come and they're going to be knocking on your door, leaving bills. They're going to say, hey, guess what? Remember the $100,000 that we loan you? It's time to start paying that back with interest, okay? And a lot of these student loans can be 6, 7, 8%. I mean, they get even higher than that if you're talking about private ones through banks. But think about such a large sum of money, right? Making that kind of interest. So if you're starting off and you're trying to get a job, you're trying to have a career of some sort, and you have to take the small fry job, right? Where you're not getting necessarily huge amounts of money. You're not bankrolled yet, so to speak. When you get to that point, and they turn around and they say, oh, it's $100,000 and we're charging you 8% interest, that's $8,000 in interest a year, okay? And when you're talking about something of that magnitude, a lot of people may say, oh, that's not that much or whatever. But when you're making your minimum payments, okay, of, I don't know, $800 a month, that's a lot, okay? $800 a month. For 10 months, you're paying off interest, right? 10 times 8, when you're dealing with that, if it's $800 a month, your first $8,000 that year goes to the interest. So the remaining 2 months, where you pay $1,600, that gets paid towards the principal, and then you start over. That's a huge mistake. That's a ripoff, okay? So I just want you guys to think logically, and I understand, right? The problem is we live in a culture now where things get devalued if they're not in the academic sense. So, in other words, you talk about, parents. You've got these people that want to go do practical things. I want to be a firefighter. I want to be an electrician. I want to be, fill in the blank, a welder, something like that. Something that's a practical skill. Basically, these institutions go out of their way to try to make it feel like if you don't have a college degree, you're not going to compete. If you have that mindset, I can tell you nowadays, they've done such a good job. They sell people on master's degrees and PhDs. The market's flooded with them now. So if that's your theory, then you're not just in it for the bachelor's, you're in it for the master's and the PhD and the et cetera, the postgraduate work. You can get caught up in the whole thing because it's a system, right? And you get issues where they're going to keep jumping the tuition up because what happens? The federal government insures this stuff. And so they turn around. Imagine if you were a loan officer at a bank, right? And an 18-year-old comes into you and says, hi, I'd like to borrow a loan that's paid out to me for $150,000 over 4 years. Have you had any job experience? Yeah, I've sold ice cream on the weekends, right? I mowed lawns in the summer. Do you have any pay stubs? No, not really. Or maybe, yes, I get a pay stub from Pizza Hut every 2 weeks for delivering pizzas. I'm not knocking that type of work. What I'm saying is any loan officer in their right mind is going to turn around and say, no, bye, right? You're not getting that money. They're not going to loan you $150,000. If they did, their manager, okay, or the CEOs or whoever is in charge of that small bank is going to fire that person the next day, I guarantee you. Because there's no way that kid gets that loan without a cosigner. He doesn't have the assets, he doesn't have the value, he doesn't have the work experience, etc. Right? But with the way the federal government runs stuff now, it doesn't matter. They don't care. Oh, hell, you want to go do a film degree? We'll give you $300,000. Whatever. That's great. You want to go to that private institution. And so then what do the institutions see? Oh, well, it's $30,000 a year and these kids are sold on this. They're going to pay $30,000 a year. The government's backing them. They don't care. So let's try 35. Oh, people are coming at 35. Let's go to 40. Let's go to 50. It just keeps piling it up. And then you have the government backing this with the taxpayers' money saying, yeah, why not? 50,000, 60,000, we have to keep up with education. We have to be a highly educated culture. I understand we're behind, okay? But we're behind for other reasons. It's not that we don't value education. I'm going to argue we almost value education so much that we're blinded to the cost. When you have public libraries, I mean, you guys are watching my YouTube channel. YouTube is a free resource, right? And you can teach yourself programming, organic chemistry, calculus, all that kind of stuff online. And I understand the degree basically certifies you or whatever, but it doesn't prove that you have knowledge. And the biggest thing you have to understand is a degree is not a meal ticket. It doesn't guarantee you the job, and it doesn't guarantee you, as much as people are going to say, oh, well, this industry's hot, or you should be doing this, and STEM and programming. And at the end of the day, you need to keep in check and keep the facts real, and look at the fact that if I decide to attend college, even for 4 years, okay, and I'm not saying people shouldn't go out and get college degrees. You should, okay, affordably. You're giving up 4 years of working experience. Whether you're making your own company, working for somebody else, you could have 4 years into your career by that point, assuming you do it in 4 years. All of the money and tuition that you're spending that would be back in your pocket, that you're not owing people years and years. And what happens when you get out of college? You want to start a family, maybe not right away. You want to get married, or you at least want to date and have an active social life, right? You want to potentially buy a house. All of these things, what do they cost? Money. You need money in order to do that stuff. And so when somebody's coming to you saying you owe $800 a month on top of your rent, you owe $1,000 a month because you went to school, that's going to hurt in terms of how well you can do. And so community college, I think it gets a bad rap. They keep classes small. They're legitimized. You can transfer. You can do 2 years of your education on the cheap and on the affordable, and you can walk away with a lot less debt, regardless of whether you decide to go to a 4-year university, in state, or whether you're talking about a private college. I think that going to community college should really be in a lot of people's book, okay, unless you're flush with the cash to do otherwise. Outside of whether you take out student loans, that's your own personal issue. I'll still think you're a cool guy if you take out student loans, okay? It's not a huge deal, guy or girl, whatever. If you take out student loans, that's your own personal choice. But what I can tell you is that you shouldn't think that community college is just, high school on steroids. It's legitimate. You can go there, you can get your coursework done, and you can do it affordably, out of pocket, a couple $100 a course, maybe $1,000 a course, depending on where you're going, but not $30,000 for the year. That's insane. $40,000 for the year. Even state schools, I think it's much more affordable. But even when you're talking $7,000 to $10,000 a year, that's a lot, right? You can get, certainly not a new one, but you could get a modestly used car for $10,000. So you're basically giving a car to a school once a year in order to attend that school, and the private schools even more so. When you're looking at $30,000, yeah, then some of those private schools you're offering them a BMW or a Mercedes for going each year. But anyway, so I wanted to basically bring up that point. I will be doing these videos fairly often. I'm definitely going to, the channel is primarily still going to be focused on uploading content. But I wanted to reach out to people that are in community college, for people that may have heard that, for people that are asking questions. You got to keep those things in mind. And the bottom line, the biggest advice that I can give to you guys, don't devalue your money, okay? It's not monopoly money. Don't go out and say, education is the end-all, be-all. I will spend everything on education. There's life after education. There's life after the ivory tower, and that life requires money, okay? And I'm not saying, oh, you don't have to be rich and have to be, I understand that. And I'm not trying to say you should love money or be obsessed with money. What I am saying is there are certain realities. If I want to keep my air on, right? If I want to feed my family decent food, if I want to make sure that I pay my mortgage on time, it's not, there's people that say, well, you need to enjoy things that are non-monetary in life. I agree. That should be the main focus. But you can't ignore the other part. You can't turn around and just say, well, maybe you can. If you want to be a hippie that wanders around, in the forest and, you know, panhandles for change on the side of the road to get a McDouble, go for it. But if you want to have some sort of stability, a family life, you want to pay for a wedding at some point, you want a house, you know, you want to raise kids, you want a career track of some sort that's satisfying, and you need to put gas in your car to get there. You need to invest in yourself, into new learning materials. You need to value your money. So that's it for now. Take care, and I will see you guys for the next video. Thanks a lot.